Will Travel, Just Paul Community Service, the show, in for another hour or so. It's 7 minutes past noon, and I am joined live in the studio by three folks here. We've got Rick White. Say something, Rick.
Hey, everybody.
Rick White, brewmaster. Are you brewmaster? What's your title?
Just call me a brewer. You know, that master thing is a little strong.
You think? I've seen the setup you have back there. That's not just a brewer. I mean, a brewer is in the garage. You know, you've got like...
And then when you say it, you have to set your fingers to your thumb. And put your elbows up.
Yeah, wash my mouth out with a little beer in the morning and get things set. Yeah.
We also have in the studio Mr. Keith Shannon, who is on his, I guess, what is this, the third leg of your triumphant American tour? Is that what's happening?
Well, I like your title. That's great. I have been building on it. For no one else is following me, but by happenstance, I am on my 2016 U.S. tour. It started in Keller, Texas, and then played in Alton, Illinois, and by happenstance, my friend here allows me to play at his place tonight. So that takes me to, obviously, Crescent City, where we're at. And then tomorrow I'm playing with my son, who is the other half of the Blarney band up in Seattle.
Oh, okay. So is that where he lives? Is he up there?
He's up, yeah. He moved away. I call it abandoned the band. He and Yoko moved up to Seattle.
That's the way, huh? That's what happened.
I'll tell you, I got some looks from my daughter-in-law when I called her Yoko one time. she got the joke, and it wasn't real nice. It wasn't really a good kind thing for me to say, but no, they moved about 2.5 years ago. She went up there to finish and get a master's degree in urban planning.
Ooh.
So I think with urban planning, she won't be coming back to Truckee. Where and I think
all the urban's been planned out at Truckee, right? That's good.
No, they're still trying to do
Seriously?
it. Oh yeah, in 1990 there were 3,500 people in Truckee. It's now over 16,000.
Are you kidding me?
And they sent in 2001 is when they became a town, and when they became a town, they had to turn into Sim City, and they had to get some money coming in, to support themselves and. I think they forgot what they were doing, why they were doing what they're doing. So anyway, the plan so far appears to be that they figure if they get all these big developers coming in and putting in golf courses, that they hide off in the trees. That it still looks about the same, but the population has swelled to over 16,000.
I can't imagine that.
Yeah. So it's not quite the warm and fuzzy little town, but it still has its moments, and I've been there 36 years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So it's a
very cool spot. Yeah.
So is the Truckee River still beautiful, though?
Yeah, except this year when the drought and all, they have to shut down it can't even, the water levels below the dam, because the Truckee River is the only outlet for Lake Tahoe.
Oh, okay. All right.
So when it gets down below that, the only thing to feed it any longer would be Donner Lake, and its rim can drop too.
Yeah.
And so at Donner Lake is where it hits Truckee. So it gets down to where I called it the Truckee Trickle.
The Truckee, yeah.
But
so before we get into the performance and everything, let's talk about the spread here. What did you bring for us today, Rick?
Oh, we brought a little brew today. We have the Del Norte Porter, and then we have the new and improved Amber Ale. I think everybody's going to really enjoy this. Came in with an ABV about 4.8 and less red in the beginning. So now what we've done is bumped it up and to 6% ABV and added a little red, a little more mouthfeel, and I really think people are going to enjoy it. Very clean, drinkable beer.
Okay, so I've enjoyed the amber in the past. So let me just compare and contrast.
Scrutinize it one more time.
Wow, yeah, that's much more flavorful. There's something about that that's fuller in there for me. That's really good.
I'm shooting for a little more drinkability, if you will.
Drinkability? What does that mean? That's drinkability.
That's beer nerd talk.
Yeah.
Well, from my samplings, I can say that all your stuff has drinkability. I don't think there's a...
Oh, thank you.
See, but then after a while, my drinkability just goes down, and I can't... it's like I can't bring the drinkability to the drink anymore. But that's what... Wow, wonderful. That's nice. I like that.
I do try to provide beers of a wide range of ABV. Some people like to drink a few beers, and I still want them to be safe. So we have some less alcohol beers, even an IPA that's a session IPA meant for, so you can drink more than one and enjoy it and still be safe.
Wow, and that's what they call it if you're drinking more than one, it's a session?
A session. You can have lots of sessions.
I am learning so much.
I know,
You
me
can
too.
have a drinking, talking, singing. They're all sessions.
Let's talk about the session then happening tonight. So you've got Keith coming in. How do you know Keith?
I knew Keith from one of the things I needed to learn along the way to get where I am today is to learn bartending. So I took a job at Keole Irish Pub in Reno and do a lot of authentic Irish things there. Have a lot of fun times there. And Keith was one of the performers, the regular performers there. Keith and Dan, the Blarney band. They were in there quite often. And
back when it was all about the music, right? With you and Dan, before all this other stuff.
Before Yoko showed. No, that was when they opened. They're on their 10th year now.
Yeah, and, already.
We and I've actually gotten the owner to say the same words, but we're sort of the house band.
To say you've actually got him to say the same
I made
words.
it up. He'd never call us house band. But I call us his house band because we play before Yoko, we would play at least twice a month there. So that that's pretty regular for a guy like him that doesn't want to have the same band even 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
But thankfully, since Dan's moved to Seattle, he's changed his ways because he loves to have the Blarney band in, and I have not to toot my own horn, but we have a nice follow. We've played every St. Patty's Day. That's our main event.
And I'd like to have them here, but they're booked.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah, and I'd like to be here too because you asked where we met. There was actually a fella that used to come into the pub that's kind of, he still comes in, George Angel. He, interestingly...
He's been here already.
Right.
Several times.
But he has, in that particular pub, he became the glue for a certain group of people. He had a little... keg at his own house, and he would throw these parties every once in a while, but he would invite all the people he met at Keole. Well, there are people who will sit across the table from each other, and certainly people behind the bar that never really get to know anybody else, because I didn't know Rick as a bartender. I knew him from George's parties.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's interesting. I knew he was back there, but we never really and
you're working.
And also we are a band that never takes a break.
Oh wow.
So you come in, you load in, and you play it out, and you might talk a little bit as time goes on. And we got to know. I mean, we know all the wait staff and the owner and all, but we didn't take breaks in the middle to get that other edge of rubbing shoulders.
Sure.
Usually when we heard from Keith, he was heckling us.
Really?
That's how that works.
Yeah. I think it was more of an echo because we expect to be heckled, as a band, and I need the conversation because Dan, my other half, doesn't talk much, but he's great. He's great. It's a target-rich environment because you have this guy who won't ever come back at you with anything, and I can just pick on him incessantly.
But just so you know, the whole environment back then when I worked there, and it's still like that today, is there's a certain element I want to regenerate in this community. When people come to Porta Pints and there's a Celtic experience, I want them to know it's all about clap along, sing along, have a big smile, really enjoy the fellowship of the whole event, and that's what we're after tonight. I think it's really gonna be a fun time for those who choose to come check out the brews and the fine music.
So what can we expect in a Blarney Man show?
Well, I tend to be, as a solo artist, a little more on the ballad side, and there's still the sing-alongs and the clap-alongs. But so I was telling Rick last night, it's the repertoire changes a bit. I sing, and I think it lends itself more to the Irish feel, and I tend to start out a show that way, where I play more ballads and the soft stuff, and then. It gets into more of the pub music like he's talking about. where you encourage people to sing and clap along. And like he pointed out, one of the things that there's a bit of an education that goes with it, because there's this, it's sort of like when you go to a Texas swing place, and you wonder how these people ever learned to jump up and do these line dances and stuff. And you're thinking, wow, that's really cool, that they're out there doing it. I mean, it looks pretty hokey, but you think, oh, that's really neat, And the same thing with the songs. Like, I don't know if you ever heard the song The Unicorn. It was done by a band called the Irish Rovers in the 70s. And
but the unicorn doesn't make it to the ark?
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, give the story away.
I'm sorry.
Man, no one's going to come now.
So is this one of the things that audience members should be aware of tonight? Don't holler out there.
I bet you stood in line at the Titanic and said, the ship sinks. Oh,
all right, I'm very sorry. So what is this unicorn song? I have no idea.
You've deflated me. But anyway, what I was getting at is that there's a part in there where they talk about and it's so funny, I cannot remember words unless I'm singing them. But anyway, there's a part that starts describing humpty-back camels and chimpanzees and all that. And I played the song, but I'd never seen anyone who knew all the parts. Well, this gang that is kind of formed around the Angels, apparently they all learned this. Wow. So you would get groups of 6 or 8 people doing the chimpanzee and the humpty-back camels and the cats and rats and elephant,
Yeah.
And it just cracks you up. And I'll play it and I'll think, it'd be fun to do that, but how are you going to do it while you're playing, right?
Yeah.
So, but that kind of thing, you get people that join in, and then you get pubs, and this is what I think Rick's looking for too, is that participation is contagious, and you can hear it. Go into a pub anywhere or any bar where there's live music, and sit there to somebody who's not getting any audience applause when he's done, and you be the first guy to clap.
Yeah, that's true.
And what happens? It's like you've all of a sudden rattled all the hands in the place, because suddenly more people will clap.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they're just waiting to be invited. Well, the same thing happens like a place like Keole. I think the owner there, and I'm sure Rick's the same way, he realizes that there's places that you can be a part of something. If he hears that you can, like it's a call and answer, and you can just yell out the response or whatever, then suddenly people get permission. It's sort of like that okay to clap kind of thing, or being invited to clap. Because they can be in the middle of a big loud conversation and clap, 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 and they stick it out there, and it's just funny how it's contagious that way.
I like to make people whistle. Because you can just walk into a room and whistle, and somebody else starts whistling.
Oh, really?
Like 3 for the road in their kazoos.
That's
amazing. That's amazing stuff. Right there.
Yeah, that's
and that's the ultimate in giving permission. When you hand somebody something, or like I've seen guys. I had a buddy who's passed away recently. That was a brilliant saxophonist, and you think, what in the heck can this guy play a solo act? But he would have canned music next to him, and I mean, this guy was like, he would be playing with anybody, Kenny G kind of guy, but he decided he wanted to live where he lived, and which was up in Truckee in the Reno, Tahoe area, and still make a living at playing music, and but he still liked to play out, so he played these little bitty, they're kind of high end, like a golf course or something. He played in the lodge, but they couldn't be paying him much to do this. Yeah. So he'd bring in his canned music and he'd play along with it on his sax, and it was just gorgeous. Well, one of the things that he would do to make himself be novel was pass out, things to kids to clack along or whatever.
Percussion instruments.
Yeah, which throws me off, because if you get people that aren't, if I had a bunch of little kids, I had to think about, well, okay,
stop it, kids.
Yeah, it's hard enough. My wife is clapping impaired. It took a while for her to divulge that, but
I think we're gonna have a cure for the clapping impaired late in the night tonight.
Well, yeah.
What kind of cryptic remark is that? You can't drop something like that.
No, I think people are gonna really enjoy this show, and they're going to want to be part of the clap along, sing along. It just adds to the enjoyment of the evening, and it's gonna be fun.
Do you feel like playing something for us yet?
Yeah.
I want to talk some more.
Well, let me do this little ditty that it worked out perfect. I sit in on a sea shanty group in Alton, Illinois on Thursday nights. A bunch of people sit around a table in the round and sing songs. It started out as shanties because shanties are easy because they're call and answer. You know, you have somebody say something like you're on a ship, you know, and then all the others sing in the chorus, sort of like it was soldiers marching along. You know, you'll sing one part and everybody else will sing the other part. Anyway.
I did not know that about sea shanties. That
yeah, that's what they're for. Is for, you know, towing a line or doing a job.
Okay.
It gets everybody into a cadence, and it actually helps if you're rowing even to be into that rhythm that. So anyway, and there's this one little song that I think I mentioned to you when you were off the air, Galway Bay, that she was out for her walk. She's an avid walker, likes to get in a little bit every day, and so. She was gone, and just by happenstance, and I don't mind doing it in front of her, but it worked out perfect because I started singing this song, and she walks in behind me. I didn't see her, and so everyone was looking at her like, "Oh no, you're gonna be in big trouble." Yeah. And it goes, maybe someday I'll go back to Ireland if my dear old wife would only pass away. She drives me half mad with her nagging. She's got a mouth as big as Galway Bay. Seen her drinking 16 pints of Pabst Blue Ribbon. And still she walks without a sway. If the sea was beer instead of salty water, she'd live and die in Galway Bay. Now she's way past 16 pints at Pago Murphy's. And the barman says, I think it's time you go. She doesn't answer him in Gaelic, but in a language that the clergy do not know. On her back, she has tattooed a map of Ireland. And when she takes her bath on Saturday, she rubs the sunlight soap around by Clare, just to watch the Galway Bay.
That's beautiful. That was brilliant.
Well, it just about the time that I got to the, if my dear old wife had only passed away, she walks in the door. It was like I had texted her and said, "Okay, 37 seconds, come in the door." And so she's doing her little thing like she's really bothered by it all.
Kathy, how does that make you feel? Great. An inspiration. That's a lot of fun. When did you start performing, playing music and singing and performing?
Well, I started as a kid and then cut my teeth as far as performing because I was very, very shy. It took me a time to get to where I wasn't afraid of failure. I kind of always got, the moms of the neighborhood and stuff because I was playing since I was in 6th grade. The moms of the neighborhood would stop by and hear me playing, and tell my mom or me too, boy, that sounds pretty nice. And then I'd go places, even back then they'd have places where somebody would say, hey, anybody want to play a song? And deep down inside I'm going, yeah, I really do. But I wouldn't.
Oh, wow.
Because I was just chicken. So somewhere along the way, or not somewhere, but about 1999, I was still a closet musician. And a friend of mine who was running an organization called the Truckee Alliance for Musical Art, called TAMA, and they would raise money to sponsor scholarships for kids in the Truckee area, because the schools stopped, giving money for such things. So they would put on 2 shows a year or so. So she had heard me play, and which was a rarity because I didn't play in front of anyone. And she said, hey, you ought to come audition to join TAMA. So there were about 80 musicians in TAMA at all levels, of all sorts. I shouldn't say all levels because they're all very accomplished musicians, but all types, piano players and bass players. But essentially my age and my generation, so we were kind of a rock group, but country rock, folk rock, that kind of thing. And a lot of the guys were all in accomplished bands, but they decided they wanted to do something philanthropic, so that was the way they could give a little bit back. So I somehow got they said, yeah, come on in. And I realized later what it was is they wanted someone to be the president. And it's like, oh, well, yeah, great.
A hidden agenda.
So, yeah, really. So, I immersed myself in that, and we started, doing these shows. And like I said, it was kind of rock and roll thing. Well, long story longer, the gal that had invited me in was a pianist and redheaded gal, real skinny art teacher for the school. She calls me after about 2 years into this thing and on the phone says, hey, Keith, what do you think about playing a gig with me? And she'd asked me before, but they'd all fallen through. And I said, well, yeah, sure. Yeah, let's do that, because, we've been doing that thing where you just kind of put music out in front and you play along together and sing together, and we could make something happen for most any deal. And as we talked more, and I can't remember all the dialogue, but it just got to where it felt like she was trying to talk me out of it. And I said, well, what? She said, oh, it's going to be every Wednesday, and we got to commit to this. It's, it's like it was going to be like 6 to 9 or something. It isn't going to pay a lot, but you really got to be someone that's going to come every time, and yada, yada. So finally she says, and it's Irish music. And I said, well, Mary, I don't know any Irish music. And she said, and if you knew Mary, you'd say, well, exactly what she'd say. She says, well, that's okay. I know enough for both of us. And it turns out Mary probably didn't know enough for both of us. But we got together 3 times. She gave me a little cassette tape of Van Morrison, who doesn't sing. If anybody knows Van Morrison, you have to search to find an Irish song that Van Morrison sings, because he writes his own stuff, and he's very jazzy rock, and eclectic. He writes really cool stuff. But he went out back in 1997 and sat down with the Chieftains and did some traditional Irish songs, ballads, beautifully. Oh, wow. And so my first 4 or 5 songs were emulating his style.
His style, yeah.
And we were all supposed to get 6 songs and bring them to our first practice. And we did that, and then we figured, okay, well, we can seed it with some other stuff in between. We'll take long breaks, whatever. So, and what it was is there was this Irish pub. This gal from Sharon Malone was her name. She opened a pub called Malone's, and it's a pub and a restaurant. Served very authentic Irish food.
Where was this?
It's in Truckee.
In Truckee.
Yeah, and they were only open 10 months. We went there on their first week of opening, got there, and by happenstance, the owner was not there, the manager was, and the manager says, I don't know anything about you guys. And it's like, oh, well, shoot. And there was 3 of us, Mary and a buddy of mine, Pete Segal. And I actually came up with the name Blarney Band. They said, what should I call ourselves? And I said, I think Blarney would be a neat name. And along those lines, I know I jump all around, but Blarney is not BS. Blarney is the art of flattery. And so I think that that's what music should be. I think music should be flattering and very tasteful, and have something that you walk away with, you feel good about. And that's how, if you're going to Blarney and expressing something to somebody, sounds like you're blowing smoke up their skirt, but you really aren't. You're paying them honest compliments, but they might be over the top, honest, but they're still on the lower level,
to the point of mildly offensive.
Yeah. But so I forgot where I was. But anyway, so we started doing that, and it turns out we played every week for the 10 months they were open, plus any birthday or holiday or anybody came up with some reason to get us in there. So we got to cut our teeth pretty heavy on all that. And when they closed, we thought, oh my gosh, what's an Irish band do now? Well, there happened to be a place called Obie's Board in Truckee that had been there for 30 years at that time, and a very, very popular spot. And they felt themselves to be, Obie's was thought to be Irish to them. So the manager at the time, Mike Barna, says, hey, you guys want to come play every Wednesday? Or Thursday it was. And so we thought, well, I guess we can switch from Wednesdays to Thursdays. So off we went, and we were playing every week there, Wow. So again, that's pretty much all we had to do. And then it turns out that people wanted you for other stuff. Yeah. Well, then the band moves on. These all move. But it was back in 2000. Take your short question, I turned into a long answer. And so it's been since then.
Well,
and then my son joined me in 2005. Mm-hmm. He was a very much younger man at that time. And thankfully he did, because I'll tell you, he is good. He's got a beautiful voice. He's got a great spirit, good energy, and he doesn't talk. he sings, but he lets his old man do all the talking.
Okay. Well, let's get you to play something. And I'm sorry it's not with Dan. Is there any chance ever in the future of getting Dan down here too?
We could only hope so.
Yeah,
I really hope so. That would be fun.
Oh, the shearing's not for you, my Blarney Bassie. Oh, the shearing's not for you, my lassie. Oh, the shearing's not for you, for your back it with the bull, and your belly's round and full, my bonny lassie. Oh, do you mind the banks there, my bonny lassie? Oh, do you mind the banks there, my bonny lassie? Oh, do you mind the banks there, where my heart you did instead, and your love you did declare, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the ribbons frae your head, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the ribbon frae your head, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the ribbon frae your hair, and let down your lids fair, for the knock but doing head, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the buckle frae your shoe, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the buckle frae your shoe, my bonny lassie. Oh, tuck the buckle frae your shoe, or your wait on Cologne, and you've done some days alone, my bonny lassie. Oh, oh, the shearing's not for you, my bonny lassie. Oh, the shearing's not for you, my bonny lassie. Oh, the shearing's not for you, for your back he'd with the bull, and your belly's round full, my bonny lassie. Oh, and your belly's round and full, my bonny lassie. Oh,
That's wonderful. I gotta clap for that. I gotta clapping along. That's just so.
Great job, Keith.
You didn't play Irish music before what? About 15 years ago or so?
Yep.
That sounds like you've been doing it your whole life. That's amazing.
Thank you. You know, I find it interesting. My dad is first generation Irish, which would make me second. And that means essentially that his mother and father both were born and raised in Ireland. And interestingly, my father was an Air Force officer, did 34 and a half years in the Air Force, and other than our last name, you would never guess him to be Irish. And we didn't see our family much because we moved around. I was born in Japan. Matter of fact, Rick asked me last night, so where were you born? I said,
when were you in Japan?
Well, I was born in 1953.
Oh, okay.
And went back in 1960. So thankfully, I had that experience of being there as with a memory, because certainly if I was born there, I wouldn't have.
First 3 years of my life was in Japan. My dad was in the Navy. That's why I was asking.
Where, Yokosuka or Yokohama?
Yokosuka. We lived in Hayama is where the house was. So he was at Yokosuka, yeah.
So how long, do you have a memory of Japan?
But it was the first 3. I remember things like the color of the trains and the house we lived in, things like that. What a 3-year-old would remember. Right. I do remember a lot of it, though.
Well, good for you. Because I was fortunate I don't have any memory of the first time there, although I do have a photograph that I carry on my phone. I photoshopped a picture of Kathy and me. She's like 2 years old, and I'm 2 years old, and we're sitting next I photoshopped them together, and I'll show you when we're all done here. It turned out pretty neat, but it's really
so you're hanging out together as 2-year-olds in Japan?
Right.
Is that what it is?
and it's just funny thing is that we've known each other since we were 19.
Oh wow!
But we had a 30-year break and went out and did our own lives.
Oh wow!
That's how we ended up with 2 different places, one in Illinois and one in California.
Oh, okay, that makes sense. Sure.
Yeah, and otherwise, I'm sure had we been put into that life of building a home in one community, we probably wouldn't have had. Certainly not that distant.
Yeah.
So it really is. It is neat because I like the Irish scene in Illinois about as much as I like the Irish scene in Reno. Surprisingly, it's something.
I'd really like to bring an Irish scene to Crescent City.
Yeah.
I think that would be just a fun time. It gives people another little experience that they can attend here and there throughout the year.
Tell us about the song you just sang. What was it called?
It's called Bonnie Lass. It's actually a Scottish, traditional Scottish song, which makes it, I don't know, hundreds of years old.
Yeah.
And it's pretty much about when is back with Naboo means that she's pregnant.
Oh wow! Okay, all right.
So she's with child, so to speak, and it's as many of the times as I sing it, I keep coming up with different ideas of what's going on, but it's essentially that she's not the woman that she couldn't be the same woman, and she's gone and married this guy that is probably a ne'er-do-well, or I don't know. It's just a.
And you get something different from it every time you play it?
Pretty much.
That's amazing.
My mind goes somewhere different. And it's funny for me. I was one of those that grew up in like I said before, the rock and roll era. And, I was listening to songs, like Four Dead in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
Man, is that beer doing that to me? I don't think it could. I've only had 3 sips, but and I sung it over and over again in the garages of most of the Sacramento area, and never knew that it was about Kent State.
Oh wow!
Until much older.
Wow.
I had no clue. I'm singing these over and over, and there's so many songs like that that you finally it clicks. Oh my gosh! There's a one song. And I knocked myself for not seeing it. It's a song that's written from the perspective of letters being written from Kelly, Ireland, and it's actually based on a true story of a man that found letters in the attic, and it took me forever to finally come. And in the story, it talks about the mother dying at some point, the grandmother, this guy's mother. That's because it's the father writing to him here in the U.S. About what's going on in Ireland, and it jumps every 10 years or so through the song, and I'd played the thing for years before I went, well, wait a second, this isn't a woman singing, this is the father singing. And all the way, he's saying, my son John, which, I probably have given up too much because it just shows how stupid I am.
No.
I get caught up in, I like sound, and that's probably why I find it easy to emulate an accent. And partly because I loved it. I mean, I only heard my grandfather talk a few times, and I just love that brogue. I love the sound of it. So when I hear it, and I number one, I think it needs the flavor. The song would be wrong.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, Rick and I were talking on the way in that the song would be wrong to be sung like a cowboy song.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, there is a cowboy song that I do called My Grandfather's Immigrant Eyes that I played for years because I'd stolen it from Seamus Kennedy. And I'm playing along one time, and a buddy of mine at a session says, you know who wrote that song? And I said, no. I imagined it to be an Irishman. It's a Guy Clark song. But because he talks about coming through Ellis Island and all that, in my narrow mind and from an Irish perspective, and because I heard an Irishman singing it, I'm thinking, well, this is like so many of those songs that the Irish do a good job of taking the heartache of Ireland and bringing it to America. I mean, just saying that. That's
a lot of the cowboy songs were developed from Irish folk.
And so much of that. I mean, you look at the roots of much of the popular music comes from that design that the Scots Irish brought to music. That A part, B part. So it's essentially...
Okay, all right. And I've always had, it's kind of like in this back burner, I'd like to, if I could go back in time and be and study music and write a dissertation like this, I would love to find out just the development of the 1-4-5 progression in music, like where that came from. Is that a Scotch-Irish thing, or is that part? Or is that just everywhere?
I could lie and tell you I knew.
Yeah. Nobody knows. That's just nobody can tell me where this comes from. It's the
thankfully,
basis.
I think music is someone hearing something they like and then repeating it, and then some cultures find it easier to just repeat the thing they've heard every day in and day out. And the Irish were very much a closed society, but closed in the sense that they stuck to themselves, and they were also a conquered nation. But they, in their illiteracy, they found that the oral tradition, as many cultures do, was the way to pass things along. So they found that they could tell great stories in song, and they tend to have their own regions because the transportation was way behind the curve years ago. I mean, it wasn't until the 50s that the last of the bards disappeared.
Yeah.
They actually had travelers that would walk around and go from town to town and be invited into a home. And everyone would gather there around a fireplace, and he would be offered whiskey and a meal, and he would be given a place to sleep, but in exchange, he would tell stories.
Wow.
And so much of it was just to tell the story of what he had seen, the places he'd gone. And of course, they wrote poems and that kind of stuff, too.
But that kind of the experience of the bard, I mean, that's almost like an archetypal human experience. That could be Homer in ancient Greece.
Yeah,
that could be. It's the same sort of thing.
Yeah.
To see that, I didn't know it went that far into the 50s, into the 20th century. That's amazing.
Yeah, and it kind of shows how far behind Ireland was to catch up with the rest of the world.
And also what a good thing sometimes it is to be that far behind the rest of the world. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and thankfully, I'm fortunate to have gone back twice. And I think it's nice to have that feeling that what the Irish are known for is their hospitality and the openness, and it's still there. It just feels neat to go into a place and feel that no one looks at you like, well, what are you doing in our?
Yeah.
It is very welcoming.
A friend of mine named Patrick O'Brien went to visit back and just had a wonderful experience just getting off the plane in Galway. Like, oh, Patrick, you're back for a visit, are you?
Yeah.
It's just,
welcome home.
Yeah,
then.
Exactly. It was beautiful. That's wonderful.
Oh, and it's very much like that. And fortunately, I still have family in County Cork, And in 2002, when we went, most recently, I think it was 2008 or so, my grandfather's home's still there.
Wow.
And it's just a neat thing. And I'm not a real spiritual guy, but I'll tell you, standing there on that property and having my mind play with the idea that my father's father's father and father before that,
right there,
all crossed this ground, and I
think that's it's a difficult experience to comprehend, to just being an American. You know, where we're so rootless compared to the long tradition.
Yeah. And so I embraced it when I got back to the opportunity and so I really don't play. I've got a group of people in Truckee that get together every once in a while on Monday nights. They're all, again, closet musicians, and we play cowboy campfire songs together, and it's a lot of fun because you just to sit with friends and join your voices together and music, and somebody will play, and everybody else, if you know it, if you can follow it, you join in. If you don't, you sit out. Yeah. And it gives you an excuse to drink a beer, and it's a lot of fun. But other than that, I used to have a sort of rock repertoire. I don't bother with, because there's so much good music in the Irish genre, and that's. I used it with Tama because they were thinking about, what kind of show are we going to do next, and they wanted to get off into some of these other genres. And I said, you know what? If you're a brick builder, you ought to build with brick. So why try to erect something that's different if that's what you are? And so I kind of come to that thing with myself, that I'm an Irish musician, and that there's just so much good music to keep going. And live music, when you look at this in this day of iTunes and all the processed stuff going out there, I'm reluctant to put any even though I'm an acoustic musician, I'm reluctant to do any of the loopers or the other because
I can understand.
I just think, well, partly because it's above my learning curve. To be blunt, but or honest, but the other side is, I think music should be done, in this kind of music, and even the pub stuff, the fun little ditties, which I guess I could do one of those. Let me. Can you break away for a while? So
sure. Are you changing tuning here? Is that
well, not change a tuning, just get it tuned.
Or just
Did I say that out loud? I'm sorry.
Oh, I see. That's the secret. Don't tune. Let's find something here we can enjoy. All right, just a little break. Keith Shannon's tuning up, and I know what we can do. Let's go play. Now we have to change your underwriting announcement, because we made a big deal about how you're the only brew house in Crescent City.
We have some company. And
have you been over there?
Yes, and they have awesome beers.
Do they really?
Sequix, their brewer over there, Chad. He's got it going on. And,
that's fantastic.
We're really developing a craft beer, indie beer culture.
That's fantastic. I have yet to get over to Sequake. I've got to do that. I would like to go and see what's going on. How many different beers they have over there? I don't want to get you into doing a commercial.
I believe they're serving about 7.
Wow.
And they're taking a little break, but they're due to open here again soon. And
that's right. It was a soft opening, just kind of a preview.
Give us all a taste of what's to come, and what we've tasted is really good.
What's wonderful. Well, let's listen to a couple of underwriting announcements. Let Keith tune up here, and we'll be back and hear another song from the Blarney Man, one half of the Blarney Band. On KFUG Community Radio.
Thanks to Port Pines Brewing Company, Crescent City's only local brewery, home of the Del Norte Porter and the Rumiana Milk Stout, plus a dozen other local flavors, all brewed on the premises, even handcrafted root beer. Port Pines Brewing Company, 1215 North Crest Drive in Crescent City. Open 3 to 9 Monday through Thursday, 1 to 10 Friday and Saturday, and 1 to 9 Sundays. So stop in and have a pint with Rick and Carol at Port Pines Brewing Company. And don't forget to like them on Facebook and thank them for supporting KFUG Community Radio. Port Pines.
Thanks to Pacific Northwest Physical Therapy for underwriting KFUG Community Radio. If you've been injured and need to restore the full range of motion to your active life, let Pacific Northwest Physical Therapy's multifaceted therapeutic approach help you. Pacific Northwest Physical Therapy, 707-464-9511. Thanks for supporting Community Radio.
It's that
Do you want to avenge your father's death?
Have you made a deal with the demon butler?
Has taking out all your enemies with one punch become too boring for you?
Then listen to Weeb Nation with me, Zoe.
And me, just Paul.
Thursday evenings from 6 to 7 on KFUG Community Radio. We talk about the crazy multiverse that is anime and play some of the coolest music Japan has to offer.
It's Weeb Nation on KFUG 101.1 FM and KFUGradio.org. Are you a weeb? And I talked to Zoe last night, and after about a month off the air because of the school year ending and a trip she took with her grandma, the Weeb Nation will resume this next Thursday at 6 o'clock. So we are back at the KFUG studios live with Rick White from Port au Prince and with Keith Shannon, the Blarney man, who is performing there this evening. And he's graced us with a couple of songs so far, an a cappella one and then one with his guitar. And you got something else, a little,
Sure.
Bouncier going on?
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I think this is fitting for a pub. This is a...
Is this the kind of like clap along?
Well, this is more yellow along because there's and if you knew it's interesting because there are parts in there where you talk about knocking and you'll see the knocking is and anyone's heard it more than once. They all start doing that. It's kind of fun to be in a place and have everybody banging on the table at the time. But there's a part in there where it's called the Old Dun Cow, and interestingly, this is like a 400-year-old song.
Mm-hmm.
And
done like D-U-N, like is it gray?
D-U-N, old. I don't. I think it probably is gray.
I think it's a color, so I don't
right,
remember. Wow,
yeah,
okay.
and in Ireland, it wouldn't be uncommon to find a place called the Old Dun Cow.
Yeah.
And I don't know why, but this is a song about a pub that catches on fire, and there's a fella there that has the presence of mind to do as thankfully he's an Irishman. And it might explain why there's so many Irish firemen. But he, instead of running for the door when he hears of it, he decides that he'll go where he's most needed, or decides that he's most needed, down to the cellar, because that's where the alcohol is all stored.
I heard that.
And so he takes a whole load of people down with him, and they all go in there. And I like to always say that he was going down there to save it and to go off with it, but clearly he's gone down there to drink it. And and if you study history at all, the fire departments back in the day would get paid by what they could salvage because they really were volunteers.
Yeah, they were like freelance back when.
Yeah, right. They wanted to put out the fire so their house wouldn't burn down, but the way they would get any compensation was that if a grain store burnt down, then they'd help themselves to a couple of the, bales or whatever. So you imagine if a bar caught on fire, they probably got a little more volunteers than they ever had before. So all these volunteers are coming in. And in the song you'll hear they're trying to get in, but the drinkers inside have now barred the door, so the firemen can't get in. And this is the audience participation part where it says, "Someone shouted McIntyre." And then everyone shouts McIntyre. Well, the reason why they're yelling McIntyre is because even back then you couldn't yell pubs on fire. So the syntax is such that pubs on fire is essentially McIntyre. So they instead of saying someone shouted pubs on fire, pubs on fire, so they say someone shouted McIntyre. So anyway, it's a fun song. Oops. Some friends and I at a public house playing dominoes one night. When in the room a barman came, his face was chalky white. "What's up?" says Brown. "Have you seen a ghost? Seen your Aunt Mariah?" "My Aunt Mariah be bugger," says he, "the bloody pub's on fire." "On fire," says Brown, "what a bit of luck. Everybody follow me. Down to the cellar, the fire's not there, we'll have a grand old spree." So we all went down after good old Brown, booze we could not miss, and we weren't there 5 minutes or more till we was all half pissed. And there was Brown, upside down, licking up the whiskey off the floor. "Booze, booze," the fireman cried as they came knocking at the door. "Don't let them in till it's all mopped up," somebody shouted, "McIntyre, McIntyre! And we all got blue, blind, paralytic, drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. Then Smith went over to a port wine tub, gave it a few hard knocks, started taking off his pantaloons and likewise shoes and socks. Hold on, says Brown, we can't have that. You can't do that in here. Don't be washing your trousers in a port wine tub when we've got all this light beer. And there was Brown, upside down, licking up the whiskey off the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Don't let them in till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre, McIntyre! And we all got blue, blind, paralytic, drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. There's more! Just then there came an awful crash. Half the bloody roof gave way, and we were drowned in the firemen's hose, told we weren't going to stay. So we took some tacks and our old wet slacks, nailed ourselves inside, started drinking down the pints of stout till we was blurry-eyed. And there was Brown, upside down, licking up the whiskey off the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Don't let them in till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre, McIntyre! And we all got blue, blind, paralytic, drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. And there was Brown, upside down, licking up the whiskey off the floor. Booze, booze, the firemen cried as they came knocking at the door. Don't let them in till it's all mopped up. Somebody shouted, McIntyre, McIntyre! And we all got blue, blind, paralytic, drunk when the old dun cow caught fire. Hey!
That's great. Oh, thank you. Blue, blind, paralytic, drunk. I love that line.
And you know, some of the history is that I had a friend of mine who's plays in a band called Kiana in the Reno area. Very, very good. They're really musicians. Uh-huh. And they
really musicians.
Yeah. I mean, they really put way more into it than entertainment. They really are skilled. And he's a flautist, and he is also one of these guys, very cerebral. Mm-hmm. So he listens to everything. And I made the comment about how old this song was, and he goes, "Well, wait a minute.
Uh-huh.
They didn't have fire hoses back 400 years ago." And I'm like, whoa, well, I must have some misinformation. So thankfully there is Google out there and web searches and such. And so I researched it, and sure enough, the word hose and the idea that firemen used them goes back 450 years.
Really?
They used to call a hose, they actually put wooden segments together and would construct their own, fire hoses that way.
That was called a hose?
Yes.
Oh, all right.
And he made me start thinking about that phrase, blue, blind, paralytic, drunk. And I'm thinking, well, paralytic, how can that be? And I was reading Masters and Commanders or something. That's a ship novel.
Yeah. Patrick O'Brien.
Is that
right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
And in that book, which would have been set in the 1800s, now, of course, they could use any language they wanted. Mm-hmm. But somewhere in there, the surgeon was using the word paralytic. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, yay! Problem solved.
Musician and scholar, Keith Shannon. So Keith, we've got to wrap up here. Actually, the fellow who's waiting to come in here is Sean Waddell. He's on from 1 to 3. So we're getting into his time.
Oh, we are.
Happens a lot. So tell everybody again what's going on. I want to tell you, too, what I've done is I've recorded this, if it's okay with you, with the couple of pictures I took on my phone. I'd like to post it here and get it out there, and I'll get it on your Facebook page.
We're really excited. Things really kick off at 7. Mm-hmm. You might want to come in, have a pint, get warmed up, and get your position.
Yeah.
It really gets to be a fun time, and I welcome the whole community to just come down. And if you really want the Irish experience, you're going to hear really nice ballads and sing-alongs and the whole night's going to be a good mix of good stuff.
I think it's fantastic too. It was wonderful hearing you sing. And so you're going on at 7. You guys close at 10 tonight. So you're like 3 hours up there, no breaks?
Yeah. Well, I take breaks when I'm by myself.
Are you taking breaks now?
Yeah, mostly because I'm lazy.
And we close it. We actually stopped selling pints at 10.
Oh, but you keep the
But
doors?
we can have the doors open till 11. We can still sell growlers, or you can enjoy your last beer over that last hour.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you told him this? That's another hour now. He's got.
The musicians tend to get a special rate on.
Yeah,
beers.
but what about him?
He wouldn't really qualify as a musician.
Keith, thank you very much for coming in
nice
and singing today. And I'm going to get down there tonight and sit in. And I think I got the knocks on that song. And the
at least for
McIntyre.
McIntyre.
Yeah, exactly.
Old done cow. Yeah.
All righty, Rick. Thank you. Thanks for bringing Keith in, and thanks for bringing the beer to
It's
sample.
great to be here.
That's wonderful, man. And nice meeting you, Kathy. And she was singing along too.
She
on that
talks
last
so
one.
much too. I mean, I hope it doesn't ruin your whole.
I'll edit it out. No, right.